Hacking Gone Wrong. Lena Rodriguez was your average college student, except she wasn't. Sure, she went to classes, hung out with friends, and even had a part-time job at a coffee shop. But underneath the innocent, bookish exterior, Lena had a secret hobby. She was an amateur hacker. It all started innocently enough, cracking small-time security systems for fun, getting into restricted databases just to see if she could. But things had taken a dark turn when she got mixed up with a group of hackers on the dark web. One careless mistake, a single misstep in what was supposed to be a harmless prank, and suddenly Lena found herself on the radar of the CIA. They had tagged her IP address, and now her name was associated with a fraud case she had nothing to do with. The FBI was after her. Her only option? Hack into the CIA's secure database and wipe her record clean. "I can't believe I'm doing this," Lena muttered to herself as she stared at her computer screen. The plan was simple: get in, erase the record, and get out. She had mapped out the CIA's firewall and security systems, done extensive research on the agency's encryption protocols, and even created a backdoor to slip into the system undetected. What could possibly go wrong? Lena had never been more nervous in her life. It was 2 a.m., the perfect time to start the operation. Her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she took a deep breath. She knew she had to be quick. Every second spent in the system increased the risk of getting caught. She activated her VPN, masking her IP address with a location somewhere in the middle of the Sahara Desert. A small smirk crossed her lips as she thought about some poor CIA analyst trying to track her down in the middle of a sand dune. "All right, Lena. You've got this," she whispered, cracking her knuckles. She opened up the command prompt and began typing furiously, her eyes darting between the screen and the notes she had meticulously written out. The first firewall was easy, too easy. Lena bypassed it in less than a minute, using an exploit she discovered in a government-issued update. "Amateurs," she muttered, feeling a surge of confidence. The second firewall put up a bit more of a fight, but she managed to crack it with a brute force attack. She was in. Sweat beaded on her forehead as she navigated through the CIA's labyrinthine database. Rows of classified files, secure communications, and top-secret dossiers flashed before her eyes. It was almost too much to resist, but Lena had to stay focused. She wasn't here for thrills. She was here to save her skin. Finally, she found the file: Rodriguez, Lena, fraud case 04567. "There you are," she breathed, her fingers flying over the keys to delete the file. She was so close. Just a few more keystrokes and she'd be home free. Suddenly, her screen went black. Lena's heart stopped. What just happened? Panic surged through Lena as she frantically tried to reboot her system. The screen flickered back to life, but instead of her desktop, she was greeted with a single message in bold, red letters. "We know you're in here. Surrender now." Lena's blood ran cold. The CIA had caught her. "No, no, no," she muttered, trying to close the connection. But every command she entered was met with the same chilling response: "We're coming for you." Lena's heart pounded in her chest. She could hear the blood rushing in her ears as she stared at the screen, paralyzed with fear. She had to think fast. There had to be a way out. Suddenly, a new message appeared. "Need some help?" Lena blinked, unsure if she was seeing things. But the message was real, and it was followed by a link. She hesitated for a moment, but with no other options, she clicked on it. The link opened up a chat window. A username appeared: Morpheus. "Who are you?" Lena typed, her hands shaking. "Let's just say I'm a friend. You're in over your head, kid, but I can get you out of this." Lena didn't have time to question it. "What do I do?" "Follow my lead. First, you need to create a diversion. I'm sending you a script that will flood the CIA system with fake data. It'll buy you some time." Lena quickly copied the script into her terminal and ran it. Immediately, she could see the effects. Thousands of false files were being uploaded to the CIA's servers, overwhelming their system. It was working. Now, get out of there before they trace your location, Morpheus instructed. Lena didn't need to be told twice. She quickly severed the connection and wiped her tracks as best as she could. The screen went black again, but this time, it was Lena who had turned it off. She leaned back in her chair, trying to calm her racing heart. The next morning, Lena was a wreck. She hadn't slept a wink, and every sound made her jump. She was convinced the FBI would kick down her door at any moment. But the hours ticked by, and nothing happened. Her phone buzzed, jolting her out of her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. "Nice work last night, but this isn't over. We need to talk. Meet me at the coffee shop on 5th at 3 p.m. Come alone." Lena's hands trembled as she read the message. Who was this person? Was it Morpheus? Could she trust them? But what choice did she have? If she didn't go, she'd be living in fear for the rest of her life. At 2:45 p.m., Lena found herself standing outside the coffee shop on 5th. She took a deep breath and pushed open the door, scanning the room for anyone suspicious. In the back corner, a man in a black hoodie was sitting with his back to the wall, a laptop open in front of him. He looked up as she approached, and Lena's heart skipped a beat. He couldn't have been more than a few years older than her, with dark hair and a serious expression. "Lena, I presume," he said, gesturing for her to sit down. She hesitated for a moment before sitting across from him. "Who are you?" "Morpheus at your service," he said with a slight grin. "Or, you can call me Jake. Whatever works." Lena narrowed her eyes. "Why did you help me?" Jake leaned back in his chair, closing his laptop. "Let's just say I've got my own reasons for not liking the CIA. Plus, you looked like you needed a hand." Lena couldn't believe what she was hearing. "So what now? Are they going to come after me?" Jake shook his head. "Not if we play this smart. I wiped the logs on their end, so they've got nothing to trace you with. But you're not out of the woods yet. We need to make sure they forget about you entirely." Lena frowned. "And how do we do that?" Jake's grin widened. "By making someone else look like the culprit. We're going to set up a nice little paper trail leading them straight to a fake hacker persona. Someone with a lot more reason to mess with the CIA than you." Lena's mind was racing. This was all happening so fast, but she didn't see any other option. "Okay, what do I need to do?" Over the next few days, Jake and Lena worked together to create a digital ghost. They built a fake hacker profile, complete with a history of anti-government sentiment and a trail of small-time cybercrimes. Lena couldn't help but be impressed by Jake's skills. He was a pro, and under his guidance, she learned more about hacking than she ever had on her own. "This should do it," Jake said finally, leaning back in his chair. "By the time the CIA tracks this guy down, they'll be so busy chasing their tails they won't even remember you." Lena sighed in relief. It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. "Thank you, Jake. I don't know what I would have done without you." Jake shrugged. "Don't mention it, but you might want to think about laying low for a while. Maybe stick to legal activities, Lena chuckled, a hint of her old confidence returning. "Yeah, I think I've had enough excitement for one lifetime." Just as Lena was starting to relax, her phone rang. It was an unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Lena Rodriguez," a voice said. It was deep and authoritative, and Lena's heart sank. "Yes," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "This is Special Agent Daniels with the FBI. We need to talk. I suggest you don't hang up." Lena's blood ran cold. Had everything she and Jake done been for nothing? I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered. "Save it. We know about your little stunt. But here's the thing. You're not in trouble. Not yet, anyway." Lena blinked, completely thrown off. "What? We've been tracking this case for a while, Agent Daniels continued. You got caught up in something way over your head, but we're willing to make a deal. Lena's heart pounded in her chest. What kind of deal? We need your help to bring down a much bigger fish. The people who got you into this mess in the first place. Help us, and we'll make sure your record stays clean. Refuse, and, well, let's just say things won't end well for you. Lena was stunned. She had no idea how to respond. But before she could say anything, Daniels added, think about it. We'll be in touch. The line went dead. Lena sat in stunned silence, the phone still pressed to her ear. This was a nightmare. Just when she thought she was in the clear, the FBI had come knocking. She had no idea what to do. On one hand, this was her chance to finally clear her name. But on the other, she'd be getting involved in something way bigger than anything she'd ever dealt with before. And what about Jake? Could she trust him? Or was he part of the reason the FBI was onto her in the first place? Lena knew she couldn't make this decision alone. She needed to talk to Jake. She grabbed her coat and headed out the door, her mind racing with a million thoughts. Lena found Jake at their usual meeting spot, a small park on the edge of town. He was sitting on a bench, looking out at the lake, lost in thought. Jake, Lena called out as she approached him. He turned to her, a smile on his face, but it faded when he saw the look of worry in her eyes. What's wrong? Lena quickly explained the phone call from Agent Daniels. Jake listened in silence, his expression growing more serious with every word. When she finished, Jake sighed. Well, that's a hell of a twist. What should I do, Jake? Lena asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Jake looked at her for a long moment, then said, You don't have a choice, Lena. If the FBI wants your help, you're better off cooperating. But you need to be smart about it. Don't let them use you as a pawn. Lena nodded, but she still felt uneasy. And what about you? Jake smirked. I'll be around. If you need me, you know how to find me. Lena took a deep breath. She knew this was the right thing to do, but it didn't make it any easier. Thanks, Jake, for everything. Just don't get yourself killed, all right? Jake said with a grin. 2 weeks later, Lena was sitting in a sterile, windowless room at FBI headquarters, waiting to meet with Agent Daniels. She had agreed to help them bring down the cybercriminals who had dragged her into this mess. It wasn't going to be easy, but Lena was determined to see it through. As she waited, Lena couldn't help but think about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She had gone from being a college student with a secret hobby to being involved in a high-stakes operation with the FBI. It was terrifying, but also exhilarating. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt like she was in control of her own destiny. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it head-on. And who knows, maybe one day, she'd use her skills for something good, something that didn't involve breaking the law. But for now, she had a job to do, and she wasn't going to let anyone down. As the door opened and Agent Daniels walked in, Lena stood up, ready for whatever came next. The end. Thank you for taking your time to enjoy this story. I would like you to subscribe to this channel for more. Like this video, and feel free to write your comment in the comment section. When she finished, Jake sighed. Well, that's a hell of a twist. What should I do, Jake? Lena asked, her voice filled with uncertainty. Jake looked at her for a long moment, then said, You don't have a choice, Lena. If the FBI wants your help, you're better off cooperating. But you need to be smart about it. Don't let them use you as a pawn. Lena nodded, but she still felt uneasy. And what about you? Jake smirked. I'll be around. If you need me, you know how to find me. Lena took a deep breath. She knew this was the right thing to do, but it didn't make it any easier. Thanks, Jake, for everything. Just don't get yourself killed, all right? Jake said with a grin. 2 weeks later, Lena was sitting in a sterile, windowless room at FBI headquarters, waiting to meet with Agent Daniels. She had agreed to help them bring down the cybercriminals who had dragged her into this mess. It wasn't going to be easy, but Lena was determined to see it through. As she waited, Lena couldn't help but think about how much her life had changed in such a short time. She had gone from being a college student with a secret hobby to being involved in a high-stakes operation with the FBI. It was terrifying, but also exhilarating. For the first time in a long while, Lena felt like she was in control of her own destiny. She didn't know what the future held, but she was ready to face it head-on. And who knows, maybe one day, she'd use her skills for something good, something that didn't involve breaking the law. But for now, she had a job to do.